making this video in response to Jukebox 1990. He had some questions about a comment I made about the Glock and how I felt that the trigger pull on the Glock can sometimes screw up new shooters because of the short reset on the second shot. And he didn't understand what I was saying because he thought the Glock shot was the same every time you pulled it, which it is and it isn't. You know, when you have trigger resets, like on something like on the SIG, it's real obvious. Like, you know, your first pull is a very long double action pull, but then once the slide cycles and puts the hammer back, the second reset is way back here, so you have that real short trigger pull. The trigger doesn't even go travel to a forward rest position anymore. It stays back here. So you got that light trigger pull. Now on other guns, like the car here, you know, you pull the trigger, you have that long, consistent pull, and then let's hold the trigger back all the way back, rack the slide to reset the trigger. It's got to go all the way forward to the rest position again. It doesn't have a short reset. It is, you always start from the trigger in the same position, that forward rest position. Has to go all the way forward again for that reset. So you can hear that, you'd actually hear it resetting. Right there, and all the way in the forward rest position. Now that's not true when you talk about a Glock. Now at the Glock, you start with the trigger in the forward rest position. You have to depress the trigger first before you can get it beyond that, because you know you have that first trigger safety right there on the trigger. Once you get that depressed, you can fire your first shot. Now when the slide cycles, there's where the trigger resets. Not in the full forward position, but way back here. So when you're shooting, you know, your trigger finger's not going all the way forward like it was on the car or any other true double action like a revolver. You know, it shoots. You can hear that reset. Just like a half travel forward. And on some new shooters, that can screw them up. They're having to get used to that starting from the forward rest position and then having a half position. Now, if you're a trained shooter, that's great because you've got that shorter, lighter, or that shorter, quicker second shot. But in a new shooter's case, they often will misfire because of that. They will, the recoil will cause them to pull the trigger again because they weren't expecting it to reset so quickly. I've seen, like I said, I've seen a lot of ceilings get shot that way. But that was to illustrate what I was talking about the difference between the double action trigger of the Glock and the double action trigger of the car. They're double actions, sorta, but not quite, because they both do require the slide to cycle to fire. Whereas in the case of other true double action, like this SIG P250 here, in the case of a true double action like the SIG P250, you know, you always start from the forward rest position, you pull the trigger, and the slide does not have to cycle for the trigger to reset. It resets at the full forward position. See, I take my finger off, it doesn't travel anymore. And it resets every time. You don't have to cycle the slide for the reset. In the Glock and the car, if you remember correctly, that slide has to cycle. If that slide does not cycle, it doesn't pre-cock the gun. It doesn't put it in that half-cock position. Like say with the car, with the, see, no reset. Whereas with the SIG, it resets every time. So this is a true double action gun. This is a true consistent trigger every shot. This is what I recommend to beginners. And that's the difference, is a little bit more in depth of the difference in the triggers. Hope that explains it to Jukebox 1990.